project and some of the things, and when you can expect to see Alicia here in the Bay Area, because I know a lot of KBLX listeners. You put on great shows, by the way.
Thank you. I love the Bay Area, too. It's my favorite place.
The Bay Area loves you. My goodness. But we will get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about Clive Davis.
Okay.
Your first meeting with Clive Davis, and did you know of his background? Did you know exactly who Mr. Music Man was? Did you have any clue?
Well, the funny thing is, it's not that funny, but it's funny now in retrospect. The funny thing was, at the time we were going through a really tough time. Me and my manager, Jeff Robinson, he's been with me since the beginning. And the way that the meeting kind of came together is because another gentleman who's my A&R, Peter Edge, he first worked with Jeff and I when I was first starting, and then he moved on to Arista and worked with Clive. And then the whole Arista thing kind of, moved on, and Clive started J Records. And so before that happened, Peter was like, let's set up a meeting with Clive. And so Jeff was like, this is great, because at the time it was a very difficult time, and Columbia got very ugly, and it was just, we didn't know what was going to happen.
That's the business part of show business, huh?
And it's ugly. It gets very ugly and very uncertain, and we didn't know what was going to happen and how to even eat from day to day. So nonetheless, he sets up the meeting, and Jeff is there, and he's like, all right, this is a really big deal, Alicia. We're going to get this meeting with Clive, and are you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And so, I'm like on the trains, and I'm trying to get the train thing going, and I'm late. So I'm on the train, and I'm looking at my watch, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm late. So I hop in the cab, and the cab's so much traffic. I was like, oh my God. Jeff is calling me off the hook, Alicia, I can't believe you're late. And I was like, I'm there, 5 minutes. I get out the cab, I'm running down the street. I finally got to the building, I'm sweating.
This is a TV show. This is a pilot for a TV show.
It was so bad. Jeff was steaming. When I finally got there, he was like, I can't believe, this was our future. Like, this was our future. And I'm late, you know what I mean? And so he was like, I can't believe this. So funnily enough, Clive, somehow the meeting he was in went over. So he was late.
Oh.
And so I was like, see, Jeff?
Saved by the bell.
It's all good. He was like, he wanted to strangle me. So we go in there, and at the time, I knew Clive. I really knew Clive because of Biggie, honestly.
Okay.
And so I knew Biggie and I knew Puff and that kind of thing. But when I walked into his office, that's when I really got it. And I saw Whitney, and of course, you knew Whitney at the time too. Right. But I saw, Santana and Miles Davis and Janis Joplin and Earth, Wind and Fire and like all these, and I was like, oh my gosh, like all the people that I've ever turned to for inspiration is part of his legacy.
Right. Intimidating?
It made me feel good, because I had just come from a very bad situation where Columbia wasn't really into me being a musical person.
Right.
They were into me being an image. And to see a person involved in musical, legendary artists made me feel like, I felt like I could breathe.
Do you think that the people who passed on Alicia Keys...
Nobody passed. They just didn't know what to do.
Or didn't understand.
That's all. Yeah, they didn't understand it.
Didn't appreciate Alicia Keys. How would you like to wake up every day and hear Alicia Keys' music, see her all over the newsstands, on the front pages of all the magazines, and say,
the funny thing is, though, and it's true, yes, is there a certain part of me that has a certain particular joy for that? Definitely.
Oh, come on. I dance every day.
No. No, yes, it feels good to say to somebody, see, you didn't see what I had inside of me, and you should have known. But nonetheless, when it happened, when Columbia didn't work out, and then I had that first meeting with Clive, and then he left Arista, and that didn't work out. It was almost like the same situation happened to me twice, and back to back. And it was at that moment that it happened again, that everything kind of got pulled out from under me right when I thought things were going to be good, that I realized, wow, this is going to happen for me. Because there's no way that this can happen to me twice without it being a story that's going to lead somewhere. And I knew that at that moment.
You were never discouraged?
You definitely get moments where you're discouraged. I can't say I wasn't discouraged.
Ever want to quit?
But I never wanted to quit, ever. Nothing would make me quit.
What drives you? past your difficulties?
The love for it. I really love it. You know, I really love music. I love creating music. I love the experience of it. I love being able to meet people and tell their stories. I love to be able to, the freedom of telling my own story and for it to relate to people. I love everything about it.
Where were you when you heard Fallin' on the radio for the first time?
I heard Fallin' on the radio. I was in my house. It was my first little house that I bought right after everything was better. And I could eat again. And I was happy. My stomach had a little food in it. And I'm dead serious. And I had this little spot in Queens because I learned my lesson. What happened was I had gotten this really big place because I thought everything was all good and it wasn't okay. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. So I said, okay, I'm going to get a small place and I'm going to buy it. And it's going to be mine. So I learned my lesson quick. I was in there and I was making breakfast. It was morning or I was cleaning. I was doing something very domestic. I remember that. And then I had the radio on 107.5 and that was Hal Jackson's show. And he was talking about this artist and how much he believed in me. I didn't know he was talking about me. And then he played Fallin'. And I lost it. I'm in Sunday morning in my kitchen listening to Fallin'. I'm like, it's on the radio. It sounds so good on the radio. It belongs on the radio. It was very exciting. Really exciting moment.
Do you remember your reaction when you found out that Fallin' was going to just the very initial start of its rise?
It was a very triumphant moment for me because I had been, like I said, it was a very long journey for us. My manager was there with me from the entire journey, and many people didn't believe in my music, and they definitely didn't believe in Fallin'.
That's incredible.
They didn't think that Fallin' was the record, and they didn't think that it would get on radio, and they didn't think that it would cross over the way that it did, and they didn't think people would get it, and they thought it was too old, and it was too mature, and it didn't have enough tempo. Everything you could possibly imagine, they told me about Fallin'. But I knew that I felt something with Fallin' it felt good, and everybody who heard it felt it. And I believed in that, and so we went with that after a lot of pushing. We had to push hard to go with Fallin'.
And now here's the song that started it all, Fallin'.